I didn't want to go. That's the truth. When Caroline first brought it up, this work dinner she really wanted me to attend, I brushed it off. I gave her excuses, long week, early meetings, one of my engineers just quit mid-project and I was putting out fires left and right. But Caroline was insistent. She rarely asked me to come to these things, and when she said it'd mean a lot if you showed up, I gave in. Maybe it was the way she looked at me when she said it. Or maybe I just wanted to feel like I still had a role in her life that didn't involve takeout orders and shared laundry. It was a Thursday night. Cold, typical Chicago wind slicing through my coat even in late April. The restaurant was one of those upscale downtown joints you need reservations for weeks in advance, all polished wood, Edison bulbs, exposed brick. The kind of place where people pretend not to care how expensive everything is while secretly scanning the menu for the cheapest cocktail. She looked amazing, by the way. Not that she ever didn't, but there was something sharper about her lately. Her hair was styled in those loose curls she used to only do for weddings. She wore a tailored navy dress I hadn't seen before, sleek, expensive-looking, with heels she once told me made her feet scream. She used to save those for anniversary dinners. Now they were for Trevor. We walked in and were immediately greeted by her coworkers, marketing execs, PR leads, and Trevor himself, her new regional manager. He was tall, tan in the way Midwesterners only get from private gyms and business trips, with that controlled ease of someone who always feels in charge. Caroline introduced me, calling me Jason, my husband, the tech wizard. Trevor smiled. Ah, the mystery man. She never stops talking about how smart you are. I laughed awkwardly. Well, I do my best. She said you run a startup, right? He asked, genuinely curious. Yeah, cybersecurity and infrastructure. Mostly work with early-stage firms and a few nonprofits. Before I could finish, Caroline cut in. Oh, it's a total garage project, she said, laughing. He's like one monitor short of being in his parents' basement. They laughed. Even Trevor. I chuckled too, but my stomach clenched. She used to brag about my work to anyone who'd listen. Now she was turning it into a punchline. He's being modest, she added, almost like a correction. But he did once crash our Wi-Fi trying to install a smart speaker. More laughter. I smiled, but it felt wrong. She went on, joked about my overuse of acronyms, how I once stayed up until 4 a.m. trying to fortify our home against Russian hackers, which was really just me patching the router's firmware. Someone asked if I was hiring, and she jumped in again. Unless you want to be paid in Red Bull and moral support, probably not. I felt myself shrink by degrees. Each laugh chipped away at something. And maybe it sounds dramatic, I mean, people tease their spouses, right? But this was different. It wasn't playful. It was performative. She wasn't laughing with me. She was laughing at me. I looked around the table, these people she now saw every day. They were polished, confident, full of compliments for Trevor's vision and each other's presentations. It was a different world, and she fit into it seamlessly. And me? I was just the guy who didn't belong. The guy she'd outgrown. Dinner lasted nearly 2 hours. The food was fine, though I barely tasted any of it. I mostly nodded, smiled when appropriate, made a few dry jokes when the silence stretched toward me like an obligation. Trevor held court. Caroline looked at him the way she used to look at me when I got passionate about a project, that intense, admiring focus that made me feel like the smartest man in the room. I didn't see that look anymore. Not when she glanced at me. Not in weeks. When dessert arrived, I mumbled something about grabbing her coat from the car. It was an excuse. I just needed to breathe. I stepped outside into the crisp air, walked to our car, and unlocked the passenger door. That's when I saw it tucked between the center console and the seat. A key card. White plastic with a silver logo embossed on it, the Viceroy. One of those boutique hotels downtown, modern, expensive, the kind that markets itself as urban luxury with rooftop bars and $20 valet fees. I picked it up. I stood there for a solid minute just staring at it. It was clean, barely used. Still had a faint crease where it had been pressed into a tight wallet or purse. Caroline doesn't stay in hotels unless she has to. And if she did, she'd usually mention it. She hadn't traveled for work in weeks. When I walked back inside, I handed her the coat and held out the card. This fell out, I said. She blinked. Too fast. Oh, she said casually, slipping it into her clutch. Must be from Denver last month. Weird they didn't deactivate it. And that was it. She moved on like nothing happened. But something had. She didn't look at me the same after that. Not for the rest of the night, not on the way home. I kept replaying her voice in my head. Garage project. Basement. Red Bull and moral support. I didn't say anything in the car. I didn't accuse. I didn't ask follow-ups. But inside, something cracked. Not all at once. Not loud. Just a quiet fracture in the trust I'd spent years building with her. A spiderweb in the glass that would spread, slowly, in the days ahead. And still, I told myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe the teasing was nerves. Maybe the card really was old. But deep down, I knew. Something had changed. I didn't sleep that night. Caroline fell asleep fast, like she always did. One of those lucky people who could turn the world off with a switch. She curled up facing the wall, back to me, her breathing steady. Meanwhile, I stared at the ceiling, arms folded behind my head. Every detail of that dinner swirling in my mind like debris in a storm. I kept seeing her face at the restaurant. That laugh. That smile when Trevor spoke. The way she tossed out details about my life like party favors. And the card, that damn hotel card, resting in her bag now, probably forgotten again like it never mattered. But it did. It mattered to me. A lot more than I wanted to admit. And that's when the thoughts started to spiral. Not in an angry way. Not yet. Just curious. What else had I missed? At first, it was subtle. I remembered the new perfume. A scent I hadn't recognized, musky and bold. I asked about it once, and she said it was a sample gift from work. They're always sending free stuff, she'd said, waving it off. I didn't question it. Why would I? But now that detail didn't feel small. Then there were the outfits. Not all the time, but there had been a shift. She used to get dressed for work in a blur of slacks and flats and half-dried hair. Now, it was tailored dresses, matching heels, jewelry I didn't recognize. She started wearing lipstick again. Even painted her nails. Something she hadn't done consistently since our 3rd anniversary. There were the accessories too. A Kate Spade tote. A gold bracelet that didn't match anything she owned. I asked once where it came from and she said, "Oh, a vendor sent it after that webinar I hosted." Weird, right? Weird, yeah. But it didn't stop there. Her phone, for one, had gotten a lot more private. She used to leave it on the nightstand, face up, never bothered with passwords. Lately, it was always face down, and locked, with a new passcode she never told me. When I asked about it, she shrugged and said work wanted everyone to update for security. I believed her. That was the problem. I kept believing her. Because the alternative, what I was beginning to suspect, felt like standing too close to the edge of a roof. You know you might fall. But you also know once you look down, you can't pretend it's not there anymore. Her calendar, once an open book, had turned into a blank wall. She used to color-code meetings and appointments in a shared Google Calendar. Dinner with Jason, gym, monthly review, girls' brunch. Lately, everything was gone. Or private. I noticed this after I missed my own dentist appointment because she'd deleted it from the reminders we both used. When I asked why, she looked at me like I was being dramatic. "I just like to keep my stuff separate," she said. Separate. That word echoed. There were other things, too. Things I hadn't noticed because I didn't want to. Like how often she was working late. At first, I didn't think much of it. She had a new role. More responsibilities. I respected that. I was proud of her. She said she had evening Zoom calls, or strategy sessions, or last-minute campaign reviews. But there were entire weeks where she wouldn't get home until midnight, sometimes later. And when she did, she'd smell like wine or fresh shampoo or sometimes nothing at all. That nothing smell? That bothered me the most. She used to come home and tell me about her day. The small stuff. Who said what in the elevator. What her lunch tasted like. What podcast she listened to on the train. Lately, I'd ask how work was, and she'd just say, "Fine." No details. No colors. Just that one word. She was also tired. All the time. Too tired to talk. Too tired to go out. Too tired for dinner. S*X. Conversation. But not too tired, I noticed, to dress up and disappear on weekends with friends I'd never met from the new team. When I asked if I could come along to one of those group hangouts, she looked at me like I'd suggested crashing a bachelorette party. "It's just work people," she said, half laughing. "You'd be bored out of your mind." Maybe I would have been. But now I kind of wish I'd gone. Because I wasn't bored. I was alone. I didn't realize how long it had been since we'd done something that felt like us. No movie nights, no random Target runs, no inside jokes. I tried to bring one up a few weeks ago, something about the guy at our old apartment who used to practice saxophone at 2 a.m. She smiled, but it was distracted. She didn't even remember the guy's name. I did. Oscar. Played the same 3 notes like he was calling out to the moon. Maybe I was being paranoid. That thought haunted me every time I started to draw a line between things. But the lines were forming on their own. And then there was the night she forgot her scarf. It was a Saturday. She was going to a team brainstorm at a coworker's condo. I remember thinking how strange that was, working on a weekend at someone's house, but again, I didn't question it out loud. She left in a rush, left her scarf on the hook. A few hours later, I got bored, hungry, and decided to go grab Thai food. Her favorite, drunken noodles, medium spicy. Thought I'd surprise her. So I texted, "Hey, want me to drop something off?" No answer. Then, 5 minutes later, she called. Sounded panicked. "No, I'm good. Actually, I'm not even at Megan's anymore. We went to a different building. It's a whole weird setup. No parking. Totally nuts. But I'll eat something later." It wasn't the words. It was the tone. People can lie with their mouths, but their voices give them away. After we hung up, I just sat there with the phone still in my hand. A part of me wanted to get in the car and drive. Just go see. Just to prove I was overthinking it. Just to get it out of my system. But I didn't. Because I knew what I was looking for. And I didn't want to find it. Instead, I turned off the lights in the kitchen and stared out the window for an hour. The food got cold. I didn't eat. I didn't even move. I just kept thinking about how we used to spend Saturdays laughing about dumb TV shows, folding laundry, arguing over which frozen pizza brand was superior. Now she was somewhere else and I was just a ghost in my own house. A few nights later, she came home late again. Said she was helping with a presentation. She smelled like something expensive. New. And when she kissed my cheek, not my lips, my cheek, it felt like a polite gesture. Like a goodbye without the courage. That night, after she went to bed, I sat at my desk and opened an old photo album. Not a digital one, an actual album tucked away in the back of our bookshelf. I hadn't touched it in years. It was from the first 2 years of our marriage. Vacations, birthdays, lazy Sundays. I ran my fingers over the pages like I could feel the warmth through them. We looked happy. Not perfect, but real. And I didn't recognize the person she was now. I didn't recognize the way she smiled these days. It used to be wide, unfiltered. Now it felt like a performance. And that's when I admitted it to myself, not out loud, but in my gut, where the truth likes to hide until it's ready to explode. Something was going on. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I had enough to know that the person I loved was slipping away. And I was finally ready to stop pretending it wasn't happening. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I remember because it was trash day and I was dragging the bins to the curb when Caroline's voice floated out the kitchen window, something about forgetting her headphones. She had a meeting soon, probably one of those strategy alignment calls she was always vague about. I came back inside, expecting her to already be out the door, but instead, I found her standing in front of the bathroom mirror, hair half-pinned, steam curling around her as she adjusted an earring. I muttered a good morning, got a distracted hum in return, and made my way to the kitchen to start the coffee. That's when I noticed it, her laptop, open on the table. The screen hadn't locked. Probably an accident. Caroline was meticulous about that. Always password, always tucked away the second she left a room. But this time? She must have been in a rush. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Then I glanced at the screen. It was her cloud photo gallery. Automatically synced. No passcode needed. Just sitting there. Most of it was normal. Selfies. Screensh *TS of Pinterest quotes. Pictures of meals, white bars, the occasional blurry cat from the street. But then something caught my eye. A thumbnail that didn't belong. 2 people. Bathrobes. A balcony. I didn't even click it at first, just hovered, blinking, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The photo was dated 2 weeks ago. Viceroy, Chicago. Suite 612. I knew that name. The same hotel as the keycard. I clicked. And there it was. Caroline and Trevor, clinking wine glasses in white robes. She was leaning into him, makeup perfect, smile soft, the kind she hadn't shown me in months. His hand was on her thigh. Not casually. In mately. Like he belonged there. My stomach dropped. There were more photos. Another of them on the same balcony at night. One indoors, she was on the bed, laughing at something, hair tousled, his shirt on her shoulders. Another of them holding hands in the reflection of a mirror like it was some kind of sick romantic getaway. No doubt. No guessing. This wasn't speculation anymore. This was it. I didn't move for a full minute. My hands had gone cold. It felt like standing in the middle of traffic, watching the car coming and realizing there's no time to jump. This was the moment everything snapped into focus, the perfume, the late nights, the blank calendar, the lies. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Not really. I felt something sharp press against the base of my spine. Not grief. Not even rage. Just clarity. Like I'd been staring through fog for months and now it was gone. I was done hoping. Done guessing. Done making excuses. I didn't confront her. That's what surprises people when I tell them this story. I didn't call her in, demand answers, throw her laptop across the room. I didn't even mention it. Instead, I closed the laptop, walked out of the kitchen, and poured my coffee like nothing had happened. Why? Because I needed time. Not to forgive, I was far past that. I needed time to protect what was mine. You see, while Caroline was busy playing house with Trevor in boutique hotel suites, I had been in talks with a firm in Austin. A real player in the tech security space. They'd reached out a few months back after reading a piece I published on threat detection and infrastructure hardening. Talks were early, still under NDA, but they were serious. They'd already floated a licensing deal, mid-seven figures, with a clause for future collaboration. The product was mine. The patent mine. All of it developed after Caroline and I had started drifting apart, every line of code, every iteration of the protocol done late at night while she was at work. And now? It was time to make sure no one could lay a finger on it. I called my attorney that afternoon. Told him I wanted to restructure some assets, spin the IP into a clean holding entity. We'd already discussed it in theory. Now I was making it real. Within 72 hours, I had the patent application filed in Delaware under a new LLC separate from our joint accounts, our shared legal footprint, everything. The name was obscure, meaningless to her. She'd never think to look. I also started backing up everything: financial records, email logs, contracts, even the timeline of when each version of the code had been developed. I wasn't just preparing for betrayal. I was preparing for war. Caroline didn't notice anything. She still left the house in heels and lipstick and came back smelling like expensive hotels. She still smiled when she saw me, like we were actors in a sitcom no one was watching anymore. She still played the part. But I had stopped playing mine. I stopped asking where she was going. Stopped pretending to care about her work updates. Stopped offering to cook dinner or ask about her day. And slowly, the space between us, the one I'd been trying to close for months, became a canyon. Then, a week after I found the photos, she told me she needed time. She didn't cry. Didn't act torn up about it. Just sat across from me at the dining table, the same one we bought with our wedding gift cards, and said she needed space. I didn't argue. Didn't ask what that meant. Just nodded. The next day, she moved out. No dramatic goodbye. Just a few bags, a half-hearted "we'll talk soon," and the click of the door behind her. It felt like silence had waited for the first time in weeks. I stood in the living room for a while, just listening to nothing. No heels on hardwood. No phone calls in the other room. No fake strategy sessions. Just me. Alone. And it felt clean. That night, I opened the folder on my desktop marked Caroline. I copied the photos there, all of them. Not for revenge. Not to leak. Just to have. To protect myself if it came to that. And I knew it would come to that. Because a week later, I got the email. Subject: legal notice of divorce filing. She wanted half. Of everything. The house. The car. The bank accounts. Even the business. That's when it got real. Caroline had hired a lawyer. One of those aggressive, media-trained types who specialized in high-asset dissolutions. Her claim? That my company being founded during the marriage was a marital asset. She wanted an audit. Valuation. A cut. But what her attorney didn't know, what she didn't know, was that by the time she filed, the business had already been moved. The patent was under a new entity. The value of my original LLC was practically nil, just hosting costs and a few invoices. The meat of it, the licensing potential, the tech, had been carved out and protected before she ever said the word divorce. My legal team responded with calm precision. We submitted the filing date, the IP transfer timestamp, the Delaware paperwork, the NDA with the Austin firm, marked and signed after the date she moved out. Every detail was documented, timestamped, locked down. Her lawyer must have realized it then. They had no leverage. After 2 more weeks of emails and bluffs, Caroline agreed to a settlement. A lump sum. $150,000. Clean break. No future claims. She signed the waiver on a Thursday. I signed the licensing deal the next morning. $76 million. You know what the wildest part is? I didn't feel joy or triumph. I felt still. For the first time in a long time. It's strange how someone can exit your life with barely a sound. No shouting. No slamming doors. No final argument where everything comes spilling out. Just papers, signatures, polite emails routed through lawyers. That's how it ended for Caroline and me. After all the silence, the suspicion, the unraveling, this was how it died. In ink. She thought she'd won. That's what still gets me. When she first left, I gave her credit. I figured maybe she was taking the high road, owning the choice, doing what people do when they fall out of love and don't have the courage to say it out loud. But no, she had a plan. I realized that as soon as I saw the terms in her divorce petition. Half the house. Half the car. Half the business. The arrogance of it almost made me laugh. She filed like she was cashing out. Like I was some startup stock she was finally ready to sell. She had no clue I'd been preparing for this the moment I saw her in that hotel robe, smiling next to Trevor like I never existed. What she didn't understand, what her lawyer failed to grasp, was that I'd already made my move. My company wasn't just a name on paper. It had structure now. A parent entity in Delaware. Assets moved and documented before the date of separation. Every dollar in licensing value locked up behind legal armor. They assumed I was a guy with a laptop and a dream. They didn't know I'd already shaken hands with a firm in Austin that had a Department of Defense contract and a whole team of compliance sharks ready to go to bat for me. They didn't know the algorithm I built had been quietly tested by 2 cybersecurity think tanks who'd offered to publish the findings under strict NDA. They were playing checkers. I was 3 moves into chess. Her lawyer sent aggressive language at first: marital value, joint contribution, future potential earnings. Then came the bluff, a request for audit rights and financial disclosures on intellectual property that, legally, no longer belonged to the marital estate. My legal team responded, calmly and surgically, with timestamps and legal citations. The key moment came in mediation. It was just us and our attorneys sitting in a glass conference room overlooking the river. She looked good. I won't lie. Confident. Like she was walking into a performance review she already knew she'd pass. She wore one of those crisp blazers she used to save for client pitches and smiled at me like we were old friends sharing an inside joke. I didn't smile back. Jason's business valuation is unclear, her lawyer started. Given the projected licensing interest and market placement, we believe our client is entitled to equitable compensation. My attorney slid over a packet. Projected licensing interest is irrelevant, she said. The intellectual property in question is owned by Sovereign Circuit LLC, formed post-separation. Mr. McGuire's contribution to the asset is individually sourced, documented, and timestamped after the marital split. Her lawyer flipped through the packet. Paused. His brow furrowed. Caroline's expression shifted just slightly. This is dated a week after Caroline moved out, my attorney continued. We're willing to offer a clean settlement. $150,000. No equity, no future claims. Otherwise, we proceed to court and request fees. It was quiet for a moment. She blinked. Swallowed. And then she nodded. Just like that. We signed the final agreement within 10 days. The payment was wired, the documents filed, and Caroline officially became a footnote in the company's history, a name that wouldn't appear in any shareholder records or contract files. No one in the Austin firm even knew I was married. By the time the licensing deal cleared, I was legally single. $76 million. That's what the ink was worth. You'd think I would have celebrated, right? Bought a car. Flew to the Caribbean. Posted some cryptic quote on Instagram about rebirth. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt relieved. Not because of the money, but because I had my name back. My work. My future. Caroline hadn't just walked away, she tried to take credit for something she'd never touched. She'd let me bleed into this project while she poured herself into a fantasy with her boss. And yet, when it came time to divide things, she thought she was entitled. I guess that's the part one still chew on sometimes. Because deep down, I think she believed she was smarter than me. That I was too trusting, too passive, too obsessed with my little garage project to see what was happening right in front of me. She thought I was the guy you could laugh at over dinner, talk down to in front of your new coworkers, and walk away from without consequence. But she was wrong. Because while she was building a new story with Trevor, I was building something that would outlast both of them. The licensing deal closed on a Thursday. I didn't even go into the office that day. I stayed home. I made pancakes. Sat on the porch. Took the dog for a walk. listened to Miles Davis on vinyl, and called my dad just to tell him thanks for teaching me how to move in silence. That afternoon, a courier dropped off the final signed documents. It was done. The house was mine. The car was mine. The tech was mine. Caroline got her lump sum. And I got everything else. The funny thing is, no one around her knew. From what I could tell, she played it like a clean break. Told people the marriage ended amicably, that we'd grown apart. Some even believed she walked away with a piece of my company. I let her have that. Let her live in that illusion because I didn't need to correct the record. The truth would show up eventually. And it did, quieter than I expected. 1 month later, a former coworker of hers, someone I barely knew, sent me a LinkedIn message. Simple. Congratulatory. Saw the news in data trade. Big moves, man. Hope you're doing well. I had no idea what he meant. Then I looked it up. The firm that bought the licensing rights had published a press release. Named me as the developer behind a proprietary encryption module used in their upcoming defense suite. The article got picked up by a few tech blogs. Nothing viral, but enough to be noticed by people in her orbit. 2 days later, I saw Trevor's LinkedIn profile change. He'd gone from director of regional strategy to simply freelance consultant. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Caroline had bet everything on that man. She left a marriage for him, moved into a rented condo with him, tried to carve out a new life that fit the version of herself she was trying to become. And he couldn't even keep his job. I didn't say anything. Didn't post a thing. I just kept moving forward. Quietly. 3 months after the divorce, I moved out of the city. Bought a modest ranch outside Des Moines. It wasn't flashy, 2 acres, a wraparound porch, space to think. My team expanded to 35 people. We hired contractors, then full-time staff. The company name changed. The product matured. Every once in a while, I'd get emails from Caroline. Not many. Mostly short. Hope you're doing okay. Thinking about you. Wondering if you'd want to catch up sometime. I never replied. Not out of bitterness, but because I'd already said everything I needed to say. In silence. In strategy. In the life I rebuilt while she was off trying to trade futures for a fantasy. Let her think she won. The truth didn't need my help. I didn't think much about them at first. After everything was finalized, the divorce, the licensing deal, the move out of Chicago, I felt done. Not in a spiteful way. Just finished. Caroline and Trevor were part of a past I no longer had room for. I wasn't keeping tabs. I didn't need to, but the world has a funny way of keeping score whether you're watching or not. It started with a voicemail. Blocked number. I never answer those, but this one left a message. A woman's voice, professional but clipped. Mr. McGuire, this is regarding an inquiry into your company's recent contracts and financial disclosures. Please return this call at your earliest convenience. It didn't make sense. My filings were clean. Everything had gone through 2 law firms, a forensic accountant, and a third-party compliance audit from the firm in Austin. I returned the call, expecting it to be some routine verification. It wasn't. The woman on the other end identified herself as a private investigator. She was working on behalf of a client, unnamed, of course, but the questions made it obvious. Are you currently employed full-time with Sovereign Circuit? Yes. Are you listed as majority shareholder? Yes. Are you currently receiving income from government-affiliated contracts? Why? We've received a petition that may attempt to revisit a financial settlement. You may be contacted for further information. I paused. From whom? I can't disclose that. But, off the record? You should review your cybersecurity protocols. I hung up, cold settling into my chest, not panic, just an old, familiar sharpness. The kind you feel when something's moving beneath the surface and you don't know what it is yet. I called my head of infrastructure. Told him to initiate a trace on recent system activity. Nothing aggressive. Just logs. Quiet surveillance. 2 hours later, he called me back. Jason, we've had 3 failed login attempts to the staging server from a non-whitelist IP. All from the same subnet. Trace back to, get this, Trevor's old marketing firm. My blood went still. It wasn't just a coincidence. Trevor, or someone with access to his credentials, was trying to break into my system. What for? To dig? To find something he could use to claim Caroline had been owed more? Or maybe just to sabotage it out of spite. Either way, it was sloppy. I'd kept records. Of everything. I alerted legal. We filed a formal complaint for attempted unauthorized access to a restricted digital system. In plain English, hacking. And just like that, the game changed. A hearing was scheduled. Caroline's attorney tried to claim it was a mistake, that Trevor's company had overlapping infrastructure and it was all incidental. The judge didn't buy it. We presented IP logs, metadata timestamps, session records. It wasn't random. The court ruled in our favor. Caroline's petition to reopen the settlement? Denied. Her legal fees? On her. $82,000. I didn't celebrate, but that was the first time I truly saw her facade crack. I wasn't in the courtroom, but my attorney forwarded me an image from the virtual hearing. A screenshot *T, Caroline on a Zoom call, her eyes red, her mouth tense, shoulders drawn like someone bracing for a wave that already hit. That was the first time I wondered, how bad was it for her? Turns out worse than I thought. I got bits and pieces over the next few months. A mutual acquaintance mentioned she'd taken out a personal loan. Another said Trevor had lost one of his key clients and was restructuring. Someone else casually dropped a line about seeing her on Facebook Marketplace selling a few designer handbags. I didn't go looking. It just came to me. I found out Trevor's firm had been under investigation for contract misrepresentation. Nothing explosive, just shady bookkeeping, fudging performance metrics, billing clients for services never rendered. It wasn't enough to send anyone to jail, but it was enough to K*LL their credibility. 2 major accounts canceled. 2 more paused future collaboration. By the time fall rolled around, I heard Trevor had moved out of their downtown rental. Caroline had maxed out 3 credit cards. One of them I recognized. My name had once been on that account before I transferred it to her during the divorce. She'd apparently borrowed money from her sister, her dad, and one mutual friend we used to host board game nights with. The fall was quiet. Not cinematic. No arrests. No headlines. Just slow erosion. While that happened, I kept building. We expanded our federal contracts, small at first, then more substantial. A cybersecurity suite for a regional emergency response system. Then a proposal for next-gen encryption tools for infrastructure redundancy. That one landed us a second meeting at the Pentagon. I didn't even have to go, my new CTO handled it flawlessly. My team grew from 35 to 46. We opened a satellite office in Colorado Springs. I moved into a house on 10 acres outside Des Moines, a ranch with solar panels, a woodshop, and a screened porch that faced west so I could watch the sunset with a drink in hand and music playing low from a speaker hidden in the rafters. I got a dog. Border Collie. Named him Asimov. For the first time in years, I woke up not dreading the day. I wasn't grinding anymore. I was leading, delegating, innovating, and most importantly, healing. Then came the magazine cover. Tech Entrepreneur of the Year. Data Vision magazine. Full feature. My story. My journey. The headline was dramatic, sure, from startup underdog to federal powerhouse, but the photos were tasteful. Professional. It went live on a Monday morning. By 10:47 a.m. I got the email. From her. Subject, hey. That's all it said in the preview. I stared at it for a while before opening it. Jason. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. And maybe I don't even have the right to write this. But I saw the article and I couldn't not reach out. I've thought about what I'd say to you for months. There's no perfect version of it. Just, I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for how I treated you before I ever did it. The jokes. The distance. The way I dismissed your work like it didn't matter. It did. It does. I was selfish. I see that now. And I just wanted you to know. I regret it. I'd like to talk. If you're open to that. I don't expect anything. Just a chance to sit down and say it in person. Hope you're well. Caroline. I read it twice. Then I archived it. Didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Not even because I hated her. But because she was part of a version of my life I didn't recognize anymore. The man she knew, the one she laughed at over steak tartare and Pinot Grigio, he didn't exist now. And she had no place in this one. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need closure. What I had was better, peace. My story didn't end with her betrayal. It began with my decision to stop chasing someone who had already walked away and start protecting the man I was always meant to become.